In this video, we're going to look at formalizing graphing a line and then writing the equation of the line in y equals mx plus b form. So we're familiar with graphing a line such as y equals 1/2 x minus 5. And up to this point, what we've done is we've gone to our calculator, you press your table button on your calculator, clear out whatever's in there, and then we can graph y equals 1/2 is just 1 divided by 2 times x, and remember the x variable is this button here, and then minus 5. Press enter, it takes us to our table setup, and I click OK, and then I can graph the line. So if I just graph a few points on the line like -2, -6, 0, -5, 2, -4, and so on. And what we would get when we plot those is the line that looks like this. So that should be nothing new for us, and I'd expect you to be able to use your calculator at this point to graph that line. So now what we want to look at in more detail is when you see this equation, it's a special form, and that form is y equals mx plus b. Notice, y equals mx plus b. So we're going to be able to recognize that form. In question B, it says identify the slope. When we look at the slope and count it, if we start at 0, -5, we go up 1 to the right 2. So the rise is 1 and the run is +2 in the x direction. So that tells us the slope, if we go up 1 to the right 2, is m equals 1/2. Notice in our equation with y equals mx plus b, notice that 1/2 is the coefficient of x. So in that equation, in that form, y equals mx plus b, the coefficient of x will be your slope. That tells you how to count your slope from any given point. Notice the part C asks us to find the y-intercept. That's at 0, -5, okay, because the y-intercept is the vertical intercept. That's at the point 0, -5. And if you look at your equation, y equals mx plus b, notice that we have -5 there. Now remember that technically that's plus a -5. So if you're confused with the signs there, the plus b, you could look at that as plus -5. So the b value is -5. So our y-intercept is at 0, -5. Now once you know those points, 0, -5, that lies on the line, and the slope is 1/2, you can start right at 0, -5 and count up 1 to the right 2, rather than make a table. So the next thing we're going to look at is the point 2, -1 on the line. Well, we can look at the graph. 2, -1 is right here. That is not on the line. So how does that work with our equation? So remember that these are just xy points. So does -1 equal 1/2 times 2 minus 5? Is that true? You'll see -1 equals 1 minus 5. Does -1 equal -4? No. So 2, -1 is not on the line. It does not work or satisfy the equation. The 0.43, same idea. If y is -3, 1/2 times 4 minus 5, does that work? Well, half of 4 is 2. So we have 2 minus 5. Yes, -3 equals -3. So yes, that point is on the line. So we can see that if a point lies on a graph, that point will work in the equation of the graph. So what we call the slope-intercept equation for a line, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, and 0b are the coordinates of the y-intercept. Not real tricky. Slope-intercept, slope is m, intercept, talking about the b value or the y-intercept. That's why it's called the slope-intercept equation for a line. Okay, so now let's get to the idea of if we're given a point that a line goes through and then the slope, how do you write the equation? So you want to think y equals mx plus b at this point. Remember that the point is just an xy value. So if we use y equals mx plus b, the y value is -2, equals the slope is 1/2 times the x value of 6, and then plus b. Now notice that plus b we don't know because we don't know where the y-intercept is. The only time that we know the y-intercept is if the x value was 0. And unfortunately, they gave us an x value of 6 and the y value that goes with it, -2. So if we go through and solve this, I know my 6's and b's look alike. I should have used different numbers. But -2 equals 1/2 times 6 plus b. So -2, half of 6 will be 3, and then plus b. So if we subtract 3 from each side, we'll end up with -5 equals b. So the equation of our line is y equals, remember the mx plus b, m they told us the slope was 1/2, and then times x, and then plus b is really plus -5, but instead of saying plus -5, we're just going to say -5. Okay, then the second example, if the slope is -3, passing through the point -2, 4. Same idea. So I would suggest you take a minute, pause the video, and then I'll just put the answer up here. So pause the video. Okay, so on this one, again, we're given the x value of -2, okay, which goes right here. The slope was -3, and the y value was 4. B we don't know, so we have to find it. So we go through and solve that one for b, and we get -2. I'll point out that one mistake that a lot of students will make on this is a lot of times they'll try dividing by this number right here, 6, because they think it's 6 times b, but remember, it's plus b there. So just remember to subtract whatever that value is, or add it if it was a negative. So just for example, if that was -6, you would add 6 to both sides. Okay, so just make sure you're clear on the calculations and you won't miss it. So the y-intercept here is -2. The slope they told you was -3. So substitute those in for m and b, and you're all set.